A 5-minute video, because that is all it takes, on lowering a CRF250L, a process that is so simple, even a child could do it. The CRF250L is a great bike for beginners. Loads of beginners buy this, especially when they first start going off-road. It's got a really gentle power delivery. It's not particularly heavy, not that heavy anyway. It's very easy to work on. It's just a little bit tall, especially if you're way under 6 foot. You will not get your feet flat on the floor. This bike is my partner Jenna's. She cannot get her feet anywhere near the floor on this thing. Now when we're riding on the road, that doesn't really matter. In fact, we've recently been in Africa. She rode a CRF250 Rally, which has got a higher seat height than this, and had no problems whatsoever because the ground is all flat and straightforward. The minute you go off-road, especially if you're new to that and you need to dab a foot down or the ground's uneven, you can find yourself sat on your backside. So we lowered this bike the minute we got it. Now recently I've been riding it because mine's in the workshop, so we put it back up again. Going to lower it back down now and show you how easy that is to do using a Kouba lowering link and very few tools. Okay, so our first step is to get the bike up in the air. So we've got to stand underneath the sump guard. That raises the back wheel up, so the back wheel is now free and off of the floor. And we can now get access to the existing lowering link, which is here. Okay, so our first job is to remove these two bolts holding the existing lowering link on. The nuts that are on this side are 17mm. On the other side of the bike, those are a 14mm nut, which you need to hold still, otherwise it will spin around when you turn it from this side. So we're now ready to push this bolt out the other side. As we do so, the rear wheel is going to want to drop down. The best way to do this is to have someone hold the rear wheel so that you can remove the bolt far more easily. Down. So with our first bolt removed, the lowering link has now come loose. We can go ahead and remove the second bolt, the rear wheel now resting on the floor. So once the nut is removed from this side, you can pull the bolt out the other side, but before you do that, you need to remove the spring on the rear brake pedal before the bolt can be removed. Okay, so we've got our old lowering link off and we have our new lowering link ready to go on. But the first thing we need to do is remove the sleeve from the old one to go into the new one. Very straightforward, just pushes out and it will then slide into the slot here. Okay, so our new Kouba lowering link has now got the sleeve in from the existing link and is ready to go back on the bike. Simple reversal of what we did to take it off the bike. Very straightforward.
Bingo.
Okay, so we've got our first bolt in, we're now ready to put the second bolt in, but before we can do that, we need to lift the rear wheel so that the two holes align before placing the bolt through. And that is almost it. The last step is to torque these two nuts up to the correct specification, which will be on the screen right now. And that is pretty much it. The lowering link is now fitted. The nuts have been torqued up to the correct specification. Job done at the back of the bike. So the lowering link is now fitted. The rear of the bike is now lower. What we're going to do now is drop the front end. Having dropped the rear, we're going to lower the front as well to keep the bike level. People will tell you, and they're right, that doing things like this will affect the geometry of the bike and that can have impacts on stability at high speed and so on. Absolutely true. But the biggest impact on this bike's geometry is when it's horizontal in a ditch because it's too tall for when you've fallen off it. So we're happy to make these compromises. Okay, so lowering the front of the bike, very straightforward. We simply undo the nuts here and here, releasing the tension on the fork. It allows the fork tube to then rise up through the clamps. Okay, you can see we've raised the fork tube up through the top of the clamp. We're going to measure the distance on this side and then compare it to the other side. An important point is that the front wheel needs to be on the ground when you do this, otherwise the tube will just drop straight down towards the floor. And also on this side of the bike, that's the left side of the bike, there is no spring inside this fork. The spring is in the other fork. So this tube here, once these bolts are released, will slide up and down very freely, so just don't be caught out by that. Okay, so we have lined them up so that on both sides the top of the fork tube is identical in how far it extends above the top of the clamp. And to finish off, we just need to torque these nuts to the correct specification on both sides. And that is it. The lowering link has been installed on the back. The back end is now lower. We've adjusted the forks up through the clamps at the front. That end is now lower. Job done. All the nuts have been torqued off. Don't forget to put your spring back on the rear brake pedal. Well done to Harvey for remembering that. Other than that, it's as simple as that. Hope you found it useful.
Remember to subscribe and like the video.